Sometimes when having discussions about anti-censorship, I run into some people who take the topic very personally. Specifically, their arguments are typically that this media should not exist because it triggers them as a survivor of X thing. This game should not exist because it fetishizes my trauma. This book should not exist because it offends me and my lived experience. Oftentimes, these are people who have been through some deep, dark shit in their lives, and they seem to be deeply triggered by some kind of dark fiction, and they seem to take that dark fiction very personally. I myself am a victim of some very intense forms of abuse throughout my life, so I do have a lot of empathy for people who are in that position, who have gone through so much pain in their lives that they find themselves very, very intensely taking on the emotions of fictional pieces. But what I often have to remind people, and this is going to come off as really blunt and uncaring, but I promise that's not how I mean it, that the world does not revolve around you and your experiences. One of the first things you learn when you're in intensive therapy for PTSD is that the world is not going to accommodate for your triggers. You are very responsible for your experience in this world. It's the same thing you learn in addiction care. In AA, one of the first things you learn is that no, bars are not going to stop serving alcohol just because you show up. No, your friend is not going to have a dry wedding just because you're the one person in their life that's recovering. You have to control whether or not you can be at that bar, whether or not you can attend that wedding. You are responsible for your own recovery. The same thing applies to PTSD. I cannot control the movies that are made. I cannot control the books that are made, but I can control whether or not I engage with them. I can go to doesthedogdie.com and see if I can safely watch this movie. I can block tags on social media. I can filter tags on AO3. I can politely request that when I'm with my friends, we don't watch media that would trigger me. But I can't stop them from watching that media or reading those books when they're not with me. I can't stop the world from turning just because I get really, really, really upset at one specific thing. Especially since a lot of the art about these topics are typically made by fellow survivors and engaged with by fellow survivors in a form of healing, as a form of reclamation. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to come in here and tell the entire rest of the world that they're healing wrong, that they're doing it wrong just because little old me said so? That's very selfish. I don't want random people who have done nothing wrong to go to jail or to have their media or their art taken away from them just because I went through something terrible a few years ago. That's kind of the antithesis of healing. Healing means that I can function in the world despite what was done to me. To try to police other people like that is to use my harm as a weapon, use the harm I've experienced as a tool to harm others, which is just unfair, in my opinion. Unfair. Often the phrasing I like to use is that experiencing trauma does not make you an expert on trauma. A lot of people go through a lot of shit in their lives, but that doesn't mean you can put that shit on other people, especially when it causes greater societal harm, such as the inadvertent policing of queer communities, the jailing of artists, the punishment and silencing of actual survivors, etc. I put a lot of the dark shit I experienced into the horror that I write because that's how I heal, that's how I cope, that's how my therapist encourages me to. I share my writing with him, and even outside of writing, we talk about dark fictional stuff all the time. He's a huge fan of Game of Thrones, his favorite house is Targaryen, same here. We have fun. We have fun because we can acknowledge what is fiction and what is not, and what is actively harming me and my PTSD and what is not, because I take on my responsibility as someone who is healing to manage what I can and cannot read, manage what I can and cannot participate in, because it's not anyone else's burden to bear but mine. That's the really shitty part about trauma recovery. It's very isolating because it really is just you and your therapy tools against the world. And you can have really nice friends who can help accommodate you and not make certain jokes and not do certain things, but I can't control the whole world. And I am okay with that. I don't want to control the whole world. I just want to heal on my own. And like I said, that can be really lonely, but it's just the reality of being an adult. Long story short, I guess it's just really important that you try to separate fiction from reality, that you try to separate what people write about and talk about from your lived experiences, because they probably don't know you. They definitely aren't fetishizing your trauma. They don't know your trauma. You're a stranger. You're not on their mind at all. And that's okay. And that's probably a healthy, good thing that you're not on their mind at all. That's one of the reasons I'm a huge advocate for content warnings and trigger warnings, as well as being anti-censorship. All art should exist, and people should be aware of how to safely engage with it. We need to do a better job at normalizing the idea of managing your own life experience and managing your own media experience by allowing more options for blocking and muting tags, allowing more options for content warnings and trigger warnings, and allowing more options for, separating yourself from the things that can harm you so that other people can still enjoy art and media without us needing like nuclear censorship laws.